like your new RAV4.
Thanks, yours too.
What does RAV stand for anyway?
To me, it's the Remarkably Advanced Vehicle.
Really? To me, it's the runway-approved vehicle for its amazing style.
What about Remarkably Adaptable Vehicle because of its versatile cargo space?
Or really admired vehicle?
Oh, or Really Awesome Vehicle.
It really is the recreational activity vehicle. The stylish 2026 Toyota RAV4 Limited. What's your RAV4?
In the U.S., there's a break-in every 26 seconds. But when intruders step near, Simply Safe Home Security steps up.
Stop. This is Simply Safe. Police are on the way.
Using AI alerts, U.S.-based live agents help deter break-ins. Simply Safe, no long-term contracts. Save 50% on your new system with professional monitoring at simplysafe.com/Spotify or with promo code Spotify.
Outdoor deterrence requires a Simply Safe Active Guard outdoor protection plan starting at $49.99 a month. Visit simplysafe.com/licenses for alarm license information. Tennessee 2012.
For the News and Observer, I'm Dawn Vaughan, Capitol Bureau Chief and host of Under the Dome. I'm joined today by my politics team colleagues, Esther Frances, legislative and lobbying reporter, and Ronni Butts, politics intern extraordinaire. Happy August, everybody. Here we are. It's still summer, which I'll talk more about when we get to Headliner. It is still summer in August. We're going to tell you what to expect this week with the House coming back in session for a brief spell and what the Senate left them to do, because the Senate is already pieced out for a while. There's talk in the legislative building, or there was this past week, that there could be a session at the Capitol building, so we'll see if that comes to fruition. Later on the show, we'll hear more from Ronni about a story she did about federal wildlife refuge lands and workers in North Carolina. But first, let's start with the to-do list waiting for the House, and if they want to pick up anything. One I think we should start with is the potential for an override vote about homelessness encampment. So Esther, let's start with you to explain what that is.
Yeah, so Governor Josh Stein vetoed a bill that would have banned homeless encampments and public sleeping statewide. A lot of municipalities throughout the state already do ban this practice, but some Republican lawmakers have said that these municipalities don't do enough. Stein had vetoed the bill because he said that banning the practice completely does not create shelter beds. It does not help people out who are struggling, and it creates unfunded mandates for local governments to be able to enforce this. House Speaker Destin Hall has already said on social media that the House will be taking it up, so we should be expecting an override either tomorrow or if they come back on Wednesday.
We're recording this on Monday, August 3rd, so it posts on Tuesday morning, so we'll see what happens there. Tuesday morning also is Council of State, so I will be covering that and telling y'all whatever your statewide elected officials are up to and in relation to what's going on at the legislature. So this was a House bill, right? So the Senate couldn't do anything last week.
Right, exactly.
So the other thing about what happened last week with the Senate is they're going to have these gavel in and out sessions, which was started with Senate Leader Phil Berger and back when Tim Moore was Speaker, where they didn't really want to adjourn yet. They just had these placeholders where sometimes they would come and do something. Sometimes they would come and just talk to reporters. Sometimes there was nothing at all. But the way Berger was talking this past week is that the Senate, at least, does not plan on coming back until this planned voting session after the election, which is one to watch. I wrote the Sunday Under the Dome newsletter that focuses on Governor Stein, the executive branch, about this, because we could see a lot. We could see if the House does this, the encampments override, and then we're waiting on the Senate. The Senate also has an anti-DEI bill that they did not take up yet. And then, of course, if they want to pass anything new that Stein vetoes. Some other things that the Senate sent: an elections bill. The main thing, I guess, in that, from reading your coverage, Esther, this past week, is that it reducing the number of early voting days during primaries and special elections. Do you think that's kind of the big thing that we'll be looking for if the House agrees with that?
Definitely, absolutely. I think that was one of the more controversial provisions in the bill. It was that provision, as well as giving the state auditor the power to audit random counties after elections. There's a little bit of discretion in there to how many each time and sort of the requirements there, but the auditor's office will be required to have audited all 100 counties every 6 years. So there are a couple loose things on there. But yeah, a lot of the, there was a lot of talk with Senate Democrats about how they are worried that reducing that, the early voting days for primary and special elections would restrict voting for some people. But Senate Republican leadership had said that the reduction in those days would reduce administrative burden and also save some taxpayer dollars for being able to, not have to
staff them and everything for day
exactly.
after day, especially if there's not a lot of turnout during that time. Another report sent to the House is about it's the conference report, so which means the House and Senate have basically already agreed on this. So, I mean, there are no guarantees in the General Assembly, but we're assuming that the House is still on board with the negotiated versions of these, which there's also the negotiated version of the regulatory reform bill, which had the most interesting thing as far as like North Carolinians listening to this and statewide are changes with ADUs, which is the acronym for accessory dwelling units, sometimes called backyard cottages, granny flats. There's no agreed upon word, and not everyone knows the ADU acronym, so everything is an explainer of what it is. Ronni, you wrote about that. What do people need to know, assuming like the House is going to vote on this?
Yeah, so the regulatory reform bill has a lot of different regulatory reforms, a lot of which are quite mundane, but this one is quite interesting because, like you said, it expands municipalities or cities' access to ADUs. Accessory dwelling units are smaller living units that can be built on single-family lots. So this could be living spaces in basements, attachments to homes, maybe small houses in the backyard, hence the backyard cottages. And so this bill would allow, would require cities to allow accessory dwelling units to be built, with exceptions for cities along the state's eastern coast. And so this would limit local governments' abilities to regulate them quite a bit. Some local governments they allow ADUs, but have certain kinds of regulations like zoning requirements or different kinds of permits. And this bill quite widely removes some of those regulating abilities that these cities have. And so part of the controversy with this is that some local governments may not be a fan of having some of their regulatory power being taken away. But on the flip side, many Senate Democrats and Republicans are coming together to say that pushing for more ADUs helps support greater access to housing, especially in a state where we're experiencing a housing shortage. North Carolina is the third fastest state growing in the country, and we're the first fastest state for domestic moves.
In migration, I think they call it.
Yes, so
everyone wants to come here. We're the best state.
Yes, when people are moving within the United States, people are coming to North Carolina the most. And so we're facing a housing shortage, and Republicans and Democrats alike are coming together on this issue of housing. And Governor Josh Stein mentioned at a bill signing event last month that he also supports expanding ADUs for greater housing supply.
And in Wake County, Democratic Senator Jay Choudhury talked in favor of it on the floor. This seems to have a lot of support. So assuming that sent to the governor's desk, like there are maybe better chances, better odds for that becoming law as opposed to how the elections bill will pan out. That's usually pretty controversial. We also have budget technical corrections, which sounds little, in the weeds, and there are some in the weeds things. It is, state government. There are also a little more power shifts there, which was in the big budget that Stein signed into law. A lot of just appointment power, taking it away from the governor. This also includes taking it away from the Secretary of State, Leighton Marshall, who's a Democrat, and moving that balance toward Republican Council of State members and exempting some more agencies from Department of Administration oversight over some property. Property Matters is actually a topic on the agenda of every Council of State meeting. If people are wondering, what do you actually do there? As a reporter, they go around at the end and talk about whatever they want. This is, the governor, the attorney general, all these statewide elected officials, but they also dispense with some government properties. One other thing that's part of that, and a lot of state agencies are there. So we'll see what comes out of the meeting on Tuesday as you all are listening to this. The other thing, there was a third, was it third? I want to say, or a second or third, another potential budget tech corrects that the Senate basically sent to conference. So this could be something having to do with money that isn't going to come up until November, essentially that lame duck session, but also Republicans' power if they lose some seats to Democrats, what they want to try to accomplish while they still have the numbers. Other things I'm looking at is really just how things are in the House this week, with especially those who lost their primaries, and if this is their time to speechify a little more on the floor, if anyone is leaving early and is going to give a farewell speech, we could see that if people aren't going to finish out their terms, or it might be their time to settle any scores or build bridges for whatever their next chapter is. So that's kind of what I'll be looking for. What about y'all? Esther, what will you be on the lookout for this week?
Definitely a potential override, I think, for the public camping bill. I'm not even so sure it's potential anymore to how many people have just come out and said that this is planned, that we're going to be doing this. I'll also be interested to see I think in the Senate, there were a couple absences that maybe surprised me, whether it was vacation or for a particular purpose. So I'll be interested to see how many of the 120 will be in that chamber every day.
There were a lot on vacation, and I think I was the one, or somebody asked during talking to Berger after session, that what's the deal with the, House versus Senate not coming the same week, and he quipped something about coordinating people's vacation time. So I don't know if people are going to be still on vacation in the House, but you need a certain number of people if you're the ones in power to be there.
Definitely.
Ronni, I know you'll talk a little bit more about your timeline during Headliner of the Week, but on these days this week at the House, what are you, I guess, on the lookout for, looking forward to experience with your legislative summer again, second year now?
Yeah, I'm honestly looking to see what House members are going to say about this regulatory reform bill with ADUs. Something that Senator Chaudhary spoke to me about after the session last week was that housing seems to be one of the few things that is really seeing some bipartisan support. I think that's really apparent, especially if you look on the federal level. The U.S. House and the U.S. Senate has come together to pass a housing bill. We're seeing some of those same things in the North Carolina legislature. And I'm curious to see if that bipartisanship in the Senate will transfer over to the House.
One other thing on our radar, our colleague Luciana Perez-Uribe will be covering it, is the hemp regulation bill. So that could be a big thing coming up in the House this week. All right, we need to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk more about wildlife refuges and a good story that Ronni did lately, plus our picks for Headliner of the Week. We'll be right back.
Hey, it's Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. Now, I was looking for fun ways to tell you that Mint's offer of unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month is back. So I thought it would be fun if we made $15 bills. But it turns out that's very illegal. So there goes my big idea for the commercial. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan required. $15 per month equivalent. Taxes and fees extra. Initial plan term only. Greater than 50 gigabytes may slow when network is busy. See terms.
You're listening to Under the Dome. I'm Capitol Bureau Chief Dawn Vaughan, here with Ronni Butts and Esther Frances. Ronni, let's talk about this story that you did where you talked to a lot of people who are working or retired from working on these wildlife refuges in North Carolina. First, just explain to listeners who don't know what is a wildlife refuge?
So wildlife refuges are federally designated lands. These are lands that are hubs for recreation, for research, and also for conservation. So these are lands that are designated by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, which is overseen by the U.S. Department of Interior. And so these lands are key to maintaining endangered and at-risk species and also migratory birds. And so in North Carolina, we have 11 wildlife refuges, 9 of which are on the coast. And so what this story is about these federal workers that are based in North Carolina that are keeping hold of these lands, that are taking care of them, but are struggling because of chronic staffing loss and underfunding.
How long has this been going on? Is that some of it, I think, is recent with the Trump administration, but there's been issues for longer?
Yes, absolutely. So it's important to take a bird's eye view on this issue. It's important to understand that chronic staffing loss and underfunding has been going on for decades at this point. I spoke to several advocates and former refuge managers and wildlife biologists that have told me that in the decades that they had worked at North Carolina's wildlife refuges, they were always struggling with having the resources that they need, but they had to make do with what they had. Now, being a federally designated land, these individuals have federally required mandates to meet up to when they're working on conservation on that land. They also have to make sure that these lands are safe for visitors. People will come and enjoy the environment, will go and do bird watching, and making sure that they have roads that are maintained and habitats that are safe for visitors is key to ensuring that these are still hubs for ecotourism and that people can really enjoy the wildlife out there. But that's been a big problem when they don't have enough funds to do all of the testing that they need and all the animal tracking that they need and the main maintenance that they need in order to keep visitors and employees safe.
I mean, people drive through them. I mean, the alligator, I was asking before we started recording, I was like, remind me about the alligator river and all the alligators that are, I feel like ever present, but there's the signs about, watch out for alligators, bears, wolves, everything when you're going out there.
Absolutely. And one thing that is key to note is that North Carolina's wildlife refuges have the only population of red wolves. And these wolves were on the brink of being extinct some time ago, and these are still considered endangered. But these federal wildlife workers are working on these refuges in order to maintain that population. So this work is really important. It helps sustain the natural state of wildlife. For example, one retired worker I spoke to talked about a big project they worked on to restore the hydrology of wetlands that had in years past been changed to accommodate agriculture in the area. But ensuring that the lands stay as they were intended helps ensure that these animals can be safe and live in these areas and that people have all the resources that they need, like clean water and clean air.
So what did you hear from them about, I guess, their things why they like their job so much or dedicated to this, even with issues, any concerns they have? Because I know you talked to at least one retiree where they're looking back, thinking about what everybody's doing, and volunteers.
Yes, I spoke to many retirees, and one who I spoke to named Wendy Stanton told me that being a wildlife refuge worker was more than work. She described it as a way of living, and she said that her and her family had all worked there, whether they were hired or not. She said that all of her family members had been recruited to volunteer at one point. And so these people really enjoy what they do. They really enjoy working with these animals and educating individuals that come and visit. But one thing to note is that this work couldn't be completed without the help of volunteers across the state, but also many of them that are on the coast in areas like the Alligator River Refuge. And so volunteers are helping put educational panels and planting trees and maintaining lands. Some in the past have even helped move heavy machinery. And without the help of these volunteers, this work that is already so difficult to accomplish would be much more difficult. And so many of the people that I spoke to emphasized the community that they had built and just the value, the work that they were doing, but also the help with the volunteers that they had.
Okay, well, if you want to read more from Ronni about this, you can find her story at newsobserver.com. I wanted to mention one more thing quickly before we get to our picks for headliner. no bill is ever dead at the legislature, but the signs all point to this bill is dead. And the ABC omnibus and changes to alcohol law in the state this year. It looks like we're not going to see that till 2027.
That is, what all signs are pointing to right now. Both the Senate and the House were advancing different versions of this omnibus bill and what sort of an overhaul to state liquor laws would look like. Some of those proposed provisions included allowing canned cocktails like High Noons or Cutwaters to be sold at grocery stores, similar to how beer and wine is sold. There also a provision had been floated to allow ABC stores to sell on Sundays. These provisions were kind of controversial. Stakeholders came forward saying they were worried that the state might move more toward liquor privatization, if anything. But it's all sort of moot at this point, those discussions, because it looks like the bill is just about stalled. And really the main reason for it, speaking with House and Senate leadership, seems to be about a new ABC distribution warehouse and disagreements on how it would be built, if it's even needed. House Speaker Hall's office says Hall isn't even sure if it's necessary, if they need one, and dislikes both an option for public-private partnership on there and also an option that would ABC would take out a $310 million loan in order to get this built. Berger said public-private was also not the way to go for this, and really it's been House Majority Leader Brendan Jones who last year had heavily supported a public-private partnership for the warehouse. So because of those disagreements, this bill is really not going anywhere as of late.
All right. Well, honestly, they finally came together and passed a big budget bill, and now they're agreeing on some other things. So we'll see how things, pan out this week with the House, and if they're really going to end up both being gone until November.
Absolutely.
So gone to November reference. I'll, work on my story now about that. So, all right. Well, let's move on to our picks for Headliner of the Week. Ronni, I'm going to start with you.
Yeah, so my headliner is these key districts in North Carolina moving to toss-ups after being labeled as a leaning Republican. These districts are North Carolina 1 and North Carolina 11. Both are on completely opposite sides of the state. But these both have districts that are Republican leaning based on the population, but we've seen from recent FEC reports that the Democratic candidates that are running in those districts are making some decent headway there. And so those are things that I'll be continuing to look out for. Unfortunately, this is my last podcast appearance of the summer because my internship is wrapping up this week, but I'll be interning at WUNC in the fall covering daily news and elections. And so I will definitely ensure to keep a lookout for those districts. And if you want to read more about those, definitely read our coworker Danielle Battaglia's story.
All right. Well, Danielle and I and others at the NNO are occasionally on WUNC, so maybe we'll see you over there or at the legislative building soon. But we appreciate all of Ronnie's great work this summer at the NNO and in the Charlotte Observer. All right, Esther, what is your pick for Headliner?
For sure. This summer, I think it would be amazing for people to take advantage of the nice weather and go out and see some concerts. I know I have a couple coming up for me, including one in Richmond on Sunday, seeing 5 Seconds of Summer, which some may think of as a throwback, but they are still around. I did see them in concert for the first time in 2014, 12 years ago, so it'll definitely be a nice feeling to see them again, and I haven't seen them in about 3 years, so it'll be a good time, and I just would encourage anyone to get out and sit in the sun and listen to some live music.
Well, my headliner of the week is related. We have, I'll just make the joke, more than 5 seconds of summer left. And I think that everybody should embrace August. It's not fall yet. I love fall too, but it's time for more baseball and the pool and the beach if you're lucky enough to go to the beach again or live there. I think we have some listeners out there. And all of the outside things that are part of summer until fall rolls around. So it's not over yet. Let's embrace August.
Yes.
All right, for the News and Observer, I'm Dawn Vaughan with Esther Frances, Ronni Butts, and producer Kevin Keister. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.
For more from our politics team, subscribe to the News and Observer at newsobserver.com/subscribe. Follow us on Twitter at Under the Dome and NC Insider, and sign up for our weekly political newsletter, also called Under the Dome, at newsobserver.com/newsletters. Thanks for listening.
Hey, it's Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. Now, I was looking for fun ways to tell you that Mint's offer of unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month is back. So I thought it would be fun if we made $15 bills. But it turns out that's very illegal. So there goes my big idea for the commercial. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan required. $15 per month equivalent. Taxes and fees extra. Initial plan term only. Greater than 50 gigabytes may slow when network is busy. See terms.